Justin Burford, great to talk to you about End of Fashion. 20 years ago, that first album came out. Justin, I can't believe it was so long ago and we're both still around.
My knees can believe it.
If we want to start talking medications and hobbling, I could talk for hours, but we'll talk about End of Fashion. Great to see that the band is getting out there again and doing some things. 20 years ago, though, I mean, when that first album came out, it was a very successful record. It got you into the top 10. It got you a hit song. It seemed to have happened very fast. Did it feel like that at the time?
This is the funny thing about like overnight successes is there's usually a lot of nights before that one. We toured a lot, which was kind of the way you did things back then. I remember just 2003, 2004, and 2005, and 2006 and 2007, just kind of being this blur of tours and shows, and so yeah, I mean, I think that we managed to build a pretty organic fan base from the live shows and from the tours fairly early on. But yeah, when the album dropped, it went up. It definitely ramped up.
There was the Sleepy Jackson, of which you were a member. Initially, I recall that End of Fashion was the side project that you had to the Sleepy Jackson. Was there an overlap where you were doing both at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, End of Fashion only kind of came about, funnily enough, because I'd been doing lots of like solo sort of little indie gigs around Perth, while like in between Sleepy Jackson tours, because I'd always been, a songwriter. That's how Luke and I became friends. Our shared interest in songwriting, and I was doing lots of these like cute little sort of dinky indie acoustic solo gigs. I've been doing that for probably almost a year, and then something like kind of switched on in my head. I got approached to do a gig, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I'd like to do this with a band. Can you like give me 5 minutes to put a band see if I can put a band together? And if I can, like, if I'll get back to you by the end of the week, and if I can put this band together by the end of the week, I'll do the gig. So I put a makeshift band together that was actually just the Sleepy Jackson at the time, minus Luke. And I needed a name. And I think the name End of Fashion had been kicking around in my head for a while because my sister, I grew up listening to lots of Depeche Mode, and End of Fashion sort of means the opposite of what Depeche Mode roughly translates to. But it was originally The End of Fashion, and we dropped the. And yeah, so that was our first like End of Fashion gig.
So when did it flip and End of Fashion became the priority?
Okay, so we were recording the first Sleepy Jackson record. It was kind of like, it was put to me in a way that made me more interested in pursuing my own band than potentially continuing in that band, to do with how songwriting was going to work in the Sleepy Jackson. And I guess as pragmatically as possible, I was sort of made aware that Sleepy Jackson was not going to be my creative avenue. So I took that on and was like, okay, that's fair. Now I've started this other thing over here, and yeah, like End of Fashion, so it's sort of been kicking on as a side project just for a few months at that point. And I just went, all right, well, with much respect, I'll bow out and do this other thing that means more to me.
So from the start of End of Fashion to the first EP and then getting into the studio with Jim Moginie at Midnight Oil, I mean, score right from the very first time you went into a studio with the End of Fashion project. How much time was there from, that start to working with Jim?
Oh, wow, you are testing my memory. Bloody hell, I don't know. Hey, I bet it probably feels a lot longer than it actually was. Because at the time, Sleepy Jackson was signed to EMI Records, uh, and I think a couple of like the EMI peeps got a sniff that I was doing something as well. So they came along to a couple of very, very early end of fashion gigs and had shown some interest. So I guess we did kind of get a little bit of a head start in that capacity. So by the time we came around to doing our first EP, yeah, we'd had the benefit of being able to approach people like Jim Moginie and Magoo, and so we sent them demos and they liked what they heard. But I don't know, maybe I want to say maybe 12 months between like officially leaving Sleepy's and then going off and making an EP. Might have been longer.
Mm. Because that EMI connection, is that how Mississippi came about and you recorded the first album in Mississippi with Dennis Herring?
Yeah, so by that point we were signed. I think we'd signed the deal maybe 6 months before. And then yeah, I guess that then the process is just like we got sent a bunch of producers from around the world, uh, and we got to sort of just like choose from these producers that we were able to meet with, have phone calls. This is like pre-Zoom and all of that, so it was jump on the phone and talk ideas and. I think we were about to go with somebody else. I can't even remember who that was. I think we were about to go to the UK and do it there. And then at the very last minute, we heard Good News for People Who Like Bad News, which is an album by Modest Mouse. And we went, that's really cool. We like the sound of this record. We like the vibe of this record. Who made this record? And it turned out to be Dennis Herring. So at the very last minute, there was a pivot, and we ended up going to bloody Oxford, Mississippi for 3 months, of all places.
Because Dennis had just done the Delivery Man for Elvis Costello, and then the very next album after Elvis Costello's Delivery Man was your album.
There was a band recording when we got there. That's right. Oh my God, I'd forgotten all about this, Paul. And Dennis was, I don't remember who the band was, so I can't even like spill the tea, but Dennis was having an awful time with this band. And this band from the UK, they were there because they also liked that Modest Mouse record. So I heard lots about that band. I didn't hear, unfortunately, much about his time with Elvis Costello, but I did get the impression that they went back a little bit. I think that there'd been a prior relationship there.
Yeah, and he'd done Counting Crows, I think, as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, and he had some interesting stories about that guy as well.
The debut album reached number 3 in Australia. Oh Yeah got to number 21. It was the number 8 song on the Triple J Hottest 100, and you ended up with a couple of ARIA awards. So do you have a trophy room in the house there?
I honestly don't know where that is. I'm sure it's on a shelf somewhere. I tend to give all that stuff to my mum, and then she kind of just does whatever she wants with it.
Yeah, just uses them as paperweights. You ended up on quite a few computer games at that point too, didn't you?
Yeah, truth be told, like I wasn't really across any of that stuff back then. We were pretty busy with a touring schedule, fairly extensive touring schedule. So I guess that was like publishing doing their job. But recently, when we started kind of promoting this tour and this album and sort of looking back at that whole time period of the band, we've had a lot of fans reach out, particularly from like Latin America, Mexico, then Spain as well, say that they discovered End of Fashion through like FIFA, I think was one of the big ones, and a handful of others. But yeah, I'm a huge nerd and a gamer myself, so I'm definitely proud of that.
Book of Lies was 2008, Holiday Trip in a Lifetime 2012, and they were the three albums you have in common with Men at Work, that both End of Fashion and Men at Work have only had three albums. But there has been some new music in recent years. Is there plans for a fourth album?
It's recorded.
Oh, here we go.
Yep.
And when's
I
it?
really like it. I don't know. I don't know. We wanted to put out music at the beginning of this year, and we started working with a new booking agent at the beginning of this year, like for this tour, and hopefully beyond. And that was one of the things that we said right from the start of those talks, was that we don't just sort of want this to be a one and done kind of cash cow, cash in type deal. Like, we've deliberately kept this tour as modest as possible, as affordable as possible, with the hopes that this is going to kind of generate some interest back in the band and in the brand. Because I've always sort of seen myself as forward facing. We've tried to kind of avoid being lumped into the legacy sort of bands. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We just kind of prefer to maybe not take that route. Anyway, there is a new album. It is recorded. I really like it, and I hope that we get to at least release some music off that before the end of the year.
Have you got a title for the album?
Yes, I think so. I think so. But then I'm probably going to change my mind at the very last second. But I went through a bunch of different titles, and then I thought of one out of the blue, and I was like, that feels right.
And it is called
I don't want to say yet, just in case I change my mind.
End of Fashion 4. We'll go with that.
End of Fashion 2.
Yeah.
I thought of the idea of calling it End of Fashion 2 because it feels a lot more sort of closely related to the first album.
Well, Travelling Wilburys went Volume 1 and Volume 3, and there was no number 2 for their second album. So
Yeah.
maybe do something like that.
Well, I'm a huge film nerd, and for me, it kind of feels like this album is almost like the sequel. It feels more sort of like canonical than maybe Book of Lies and Holiday Trip. And they're both albums that I like. I just feel like this one is kind of more like in an alternate reality. This probably would have been the follow-up.
Yeah. Well, being the movie nerd that you are, tell me, when was the last time you watched Derelict?
Derelict. Oh my gosh. I knew that name. I just couldn't place it.
You were in it.
Once. I think I saw it once at a very uncomfortable screening at the premiere. The premiere.
I saw a review for it. It was a 2-word review. This is for a horror movie, and the 2-word review was not scary.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll have to go and dig it out. It might be my Saturday night movie. What about Rock of Ages? Touring that was a lot of fun.
It's weird. I almost see my life in sort of two parts. It was like pre-Rock of Ages and post-Rock of Ages. It was definitely a defining moment in my life, and I look back on it with great joy, and I miss it.
You did well in the theatre. Are there any other plans for more theatre shows?
No, short answer. I like my time in that space, and I think it would take something super special for me to want to go back and do that again. It's very, very hard work. I remember that there was like Superstar was auditioning last year or the year before, and we considered that for a minute, and I kind of went, nah. I don't think I want to tie myself up to something like that for that long, because it's a big commitment. Yeah, but if I was going to do it, I would like. I mean, that would have been one of the shows I probably would have been most interested in pursuing for the role of Judas. But yeah, like I said, I don't know. It would have to be very, very special.
Yeah, well, I guess if you've got End of Fashion, potential new album sometime between the end of this year and early next year, does that mean End of Fashion will be rolling into 2026 as a live band for considerable time right into next year as well?
Let me put it this way: if this tour goes well, the chances for us to pursue new music and do further tours and get on festival lineups and stuff like that drastically increases. If it doesn't do so well, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the end, but it will make things a lot more challenging.
All right, so we've got the tour dates coming up. Who's in the band?
So me, um, I'm not even kidding when I say that I think this is my favorite lineup that I've ever had. Everybody in the band is kind of a little bit kooky and modest, and we get along really really well. I saw a band a couple of years ago, a Perth band called Yomi Ship, Yomi Ship, and immediately fell in love with the guitarist and the bass. So I fell in love with the whole band, and I thought, like, if I ever kind of needed a new and fresh lineup, these are the guys I was going to approach, and it kind of came to be that I had the opportunity to sort of click refresh on the lineup, and I approached these kids. They're like literally in their mid-20s, and I thought they're never going to want to play in a band with this old man, playing this sort of daggy, pop rock from yesteryear. But they said yes, and we get along super well. Like they're like 20 years younger than me, and I feel like I've got way more in common with them than I do with previous lineups of the same age.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a nice fresh take on the old songs then.
It's fun, like having these guys join the band. And Salve, my a good friend, very very good friend of mine, Salve, has joined the band as the drummer. He's a really really good drummer, but we all just get along really well, and I don't know, it's just not a vibe that I've had in this group for a really long time. I guess back then, we were all kind of upstarts and semi-egotistical kids, who were all sort of like, it was all elbows and vying for the attention. But that just, I don't know, that just doesn't factor into it anymore, and it's just good fun. We just have a good laugh.
Well, good to talk to you. It's been a long, long time. I guess after 20 years, you're officially now classic rock.
Oh my gosh. I hear this occasionally. We'll hear "Oh Yeah," or even something random like "She's Love" and "Fussy" and all of these songs in Coles, like just up the road from me. I've been caught out a couple of times.
Well,
That's weird.
You definitely know you're classic rock when you hear yourself in the Coles speakers.
Bloody Coles. Have some good playlists.
It is. Justin, good to talk to you here at Noise 11.
Thanks, Paul.